Callie Lawson-Freeman. Oh my goodness. It's been a minute. Thank you for joining me today. We're back on her turf. We're here to talk WNBA. The season is picking up. And yesterday we had what I think, and I don't want to be a victim to recency bias, but what I think was one of the best games of the regular season so far.
I agree.
Between the Chicago Sky and a team that you cover, the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah.
Callie, thank you. Welcome. Appreciate you joining me. We have so much to get into.
Yeah, it's been too long. An Olympic break and a half. We've been away.
Yeah, well, I had to take a little vacation. I was on a little break, so that's why it was mostly due to the Olympics while we were away. But then the timing, because we had Phoenix, we had WNBA All-Star, so that kind of started the hiatus, and then we went right into the Olympics, and then after that I had a 2-week vacation. So but we're back, we're here, and we got WNBA to get into. The Sky and Aces had a great game, and this is why we always say the WNBA is so there's no nights you get off. Like, every team can challenge you. I think a lot of people thought the Aces, like it was a no-brainer, the Aces would win this game. And in theory, based on the talent and everybody on the team, they should win the game. And yet it was literally a nail biter. The game was won, Callie, on an A'ja Wilson buzzer beater. Shot. It was incredible. And so it was just an amazing game. And that the last few minutes were tremendous. Some huge buckets from Kennedy Carter. And then she hit a 3 that tied it up. And I thought we were going to overtime, but nope. A'ja Wilson said, nope, the losing ends today. We got other plans. This game is ending today. And she hit an incredible shot from an incredible pass that Kelsey Plum set an incredible screen for.
Yes.
With a really great play that was drawn up by Becky Hammons, and it's unfortunate because the Chicago Sky really have shown a lot in the last couple of games, but what a way to end that game, to solidify the win for Vegas. And maybe, I don't know, this will be a turning point for the team. Callie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, there's such an incredible matchup, the Aces and Sky, because of all of the storylines that are kind of interwoven between the two teams. You have the history between Becky Hammons and Teresa Weatherspoon, the head coaches. You have this mentorship turned, competition between Angel Reese and A'ja. And so that matchup, to me, I don't know. I guess you're saying from the outside looking in, people were like, it's an easy win. But the Sky handed the Aces a loss heading into the Olympic break. That was their last game heading into the break. And that was a real disappointing showing for Las Vegas. And so I think, they had come off 2 consecutive losses. They really need to win this game. And they came out looking like a team that was not going to win the game. You look at the first quarter, A'ja Wilson is the only person who's scoring for the Aces until the final minute. And then Tiffany Hayes scores. That's unacceptable in a quarter. You cannot have A'ja Wilson being the only person who scores. Of course, that's not a new thing for the Aces in the past few games. A'ja has had to kind of take over in some quarters. And so I think, yes, you have A'ja Wilson say post-game, we really needed this win. I always have confidence in my team, but hopefully this can, get the momentum going. One of my questions for Becky Hammons post-game was well, what about that run at the end that the Sky were able to complete and really cut into your lead? Because in the fourth quarter, the Aces had as much as a 13-point lead. And then here comes Kennedy Carter. Like you said, the Sky just really chipped away. And the next thing you know, they're in position for Kennedy to make a buzzer-beating 3-pointer, which is not normally in her, that's not what you would expect from Kennedy. You expect her to do some shifty drive to the basket. She doesn't shoot a lot of threes. Buzzer beating.
Well, she tied it up. It wasn't a buzzer beater.
Right, not a buzzer beater. But you get what I'm saying. Put her in the position to tie the game with a 3-pointer with no time left. So 1.1 seconds or something like that, and then was later adjusted to less. So you look at it and you're just how do you get in this position? When I asked Becky about it, she's honestly, I'm not mad about the last 2 minutes of that game. Like the first few quarters are what we need to work on. I'm mad that in general that we can't get stops. That's concerning, but you can't take away anything, and you can live with Kennedy Carter taking a 3 instead of what she would normally do. Like you want to force people to like their second and third options. So if that's Becky's takeaway from the game, then fine. Like if she's left that game, like, you know what, I'm just happy to get a win. We learned a lot from it. That's what she was saying about the previous Lynx losses too. So like I see this being important momentum for the Aces, ideally.
Yeah, and I think I can understand why Becky might say she's not as concerned, because it's not ideal that they lost that lead, but if you really look back and see why they lost that lead, it wasn't, and I think it's important in general when talking about the Aces to differentiate between like when they're just not playing well and when shots just aren't falling, right? I mean, Chelsea Gray had a bucket right at the rim, you know, and she just the touch, like, and we should talk about Chelsea Gray, but like the touch just wasn't there. Just like something she missed, wouldn't normally miss. Like she got right to the rim, got to where she needed to, just did not, laid it in, and it just did not fall. And that happens sometimes. Asia did have an uncharacteristic turnover too. In the end, she missed a shot she would normally make. Her shot wasn't falling. So they got shots, they got good looks, and the shots just stopped falling. They had a stretch where all of a sudden all of their shots were falling, 3-pointers that they couldn't make all game. And that's how that lead ballooned. So the Sky were playing good defense, but I didn't think during that closing stretch, it's like, okay, the lead keeps decreasing, and they did lose a couple of possessions, like with the turnover, but I didn't think it was like they were just playing poorly, you know, like they just weren't hitting some open shots. And the Chicago Sky started hitting, and Kennedy Carter was making some tough buckets, which is what she does. She's a bucket getter. And so it was just a really, really good game. And credit and shout out to the Chicago Sky, because that was their second game. And I don't think it was a back-to-back, but they had just played like a game, their second game in like 3 nights, I believe. And one was versus the Sun, which, you know, is a very tough matchup for anybody with their defense. And then the Aces, and they were in both of those games to the end. I mean, there's a case that they should have won the Connecticut game, you know, and so tough loss for that team, but it just shows like their resilience, what they've been all year. They don't go away, they don't give up, and it gave us like one of the best games of the season.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about injuries later, but I mean, I think even Camila Cardoso, what she was doing in the paint with Asia was special. Like I counted,
they were all on Asia,
right? At least 3 blocks on Asia. So I was like, okay, this is Gamecock on Gamecock crime, but this is really cool to see, because you want to see Camila. Like obviously, she's an WNBA prospect that we were like itching to see, then injured to start the season, and now we're kind of like at least seeing how important she can be on the defensive end. And like obviously the Sky kind of runs their offense more through Angel, and then Angel's over here making history on the boards like every game at this point. So like that's really cool to see, just like the rookies on display in that matchup. Like if that's the only takeaway from that game, that's enough. It's really cool to just see them develop and shine.
Yeah, I mean, I thought some of the key takeaways from that game, I'll kind of like go on each side, but I mean, I thought with the Aces, like there's some things still, like I'm a little concerned about Jackie Young. She just offensively was not involved in that game, and I don't know what that was about. I don't know if you have any insight on why that is, but I mean, she really wasn't even shooting the ball. Like this is not like she was shooting and just not hitting some shots. She obviously was there defending, but I mean, she wasn't really as involved in the offense as I thought she could have been. But the good thing was Kelsey Plum was, after having like a rough couple of games. I thought that was a good thing. I thought overall it was a pretty solid game for Chelsea Gray. Like Chelsea Gray hasn't looked like Chelsea Gray yet that we know, but you saw some Chelsea Gray like things. And I do think a lot of it, you know, I had a conversation with on Twitter with Coach Melvin, Chastity Melvin, but I think she's right that Chelsea just hasn't gotten her timing back, because you wonder, like, of course, people are like, maybe she's still injured, maybe she came back too soon, all of these things. And I do think she just hasn't, you miss that much time. There's a thing about getting like your rhythm, your flow, your feel back, right? Yes, even though she's been like this elite WNBA player, right? And so it just feels like she's still a little off. So I thought it was positive, to see that, and also, of course, what you expect from your MVP, your defensive player of the year in A'ja Wilson. Tough shooting night for her, and she joked about it after, but she goes and she hits a shot like that to win the game with no hesitation. Becky had no hesitation to still go to A'ja. A'ja had no hesitation to make that shot, and that's why she had to do the walk off, because she's that girl.
Yeah, I mean, I think with what you said about Chelsea, Becky spoke about that post game and just mentioned like the conversation in their locker room immediately after the game was that they felt like they saw more confidence from her. And I think, that's great. I think there's some moments where like you said, you see glimmers of the confidence, maybe sometimes even like in misplaced situations, like at certain points. But like you said, it's like all gonna fit together. She missed the first 12 games of the season and she missed the off season. Like she was not with the
Right.
team training with the offseason, and that's huge. Then you go over to Paris and play in the Olympics, and like that's just a lot. So it's like there's fatigue, and then there's adjusting. There's, like you said, getting into a flow, and I think that's kind of what you're seeing with Jackie. I think it's like Jackie started this season, as did Kelsey Plum, kind of trying to fill a void created by Chelsea Gray's absence. So that means like playing a little bit out of position, having to facilitate the offense, having to do things that they don't normally do. And then now with Chelsea being back on the floor, but not in like a consistent role. Like sometimes she's not playing the same type of minutes that they would have expected from her. So then you still have Jackie and Kelsey sometimes being in spots in the rotation that they're not super comfortable in. And then Jackie is still fatigued from Paris. Like you have to remember, she just like worked her way up the bench into a starting role for a gold medal. Like that's huge. But I think that, like you're not going to get probably what you're looking for from Jackie every night at this point, just because you mentioned the fatigue for the Sky. They had, I don't know, I think you said 2 games in 3 days or something like that. It's been the same situation for the Aces. Like they have had like 4 games in the past.
Olympics. They didn't have an Olympic break because their 4 stars were all in the Olympics. And we know of those stars, A'ja, Jackie, actually, I mean, they all had really big roles, but A'ja carried a very heavy toll as well during the Olympics. So,
and they've all come back and faced like super important expectations. Like you said, A'ja, heavy role in the Olympics, and then heavy role with the Aces. Jackie had 26 points in the Aces last home game, which was just like not even last week. So I guess last week, it's Monday now. So you know what I mean? It's like that's all gonna take a toll. I'm not really concerned about Jackie. Like I just think that, I mean, there were like a lot of schematic things that just weren't working early. And so a lot of the focus early was to get the ball to A'ja, even though she wasn't making the shots. A lot of them, like that was their focus, because there have been previous games where it's like, why is A'ja not getting the ball? Why? So I think that, there's like a lot of correction.
A good tweet about that, right? Like, I mean, Nakai's Duncan, he also knows this team pretty well, just like you do. And he talked about the fact that maybe they overcorrected a little bit in that first quarter, right? It's like, yes, sometimes you guys aren't getting the ball to A'ja enough, but the offense also can't only be A'ja. And I think as the game went on, you saw that, they actually won some minutes without A'ja while she was on the bench in that game. And I think that was like really important. And so I'm not worried about the Aces in terms of, like, if they find their mojo, they're going to be a dangerous team. But Callie, my question is, will they find their mojo? Because I do think that this game yesterday had very serious playoff implications for both teams. And we'll get to the Sky in a moment. But just to like sum up here with the Aces, do you think, because like coming out of the Olympics, you watched that last game with Chelsea Gray, and she just did not look like herself in the Olympics, that gold medal game. It was turnover after turnover after turnover. And then you come back and because like even when she first came back, like I didn't expect to see Chelsea Gray right away, and she had some moments, and all the data was showing like the team was so much better with her back. So that wasn't even a question. But then it feels like there's been a slight regression almost, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, is the fatigue kicking in now? Because it's hard. Like you're not in full game shape. Like being in game shape for a season does usually require an off season. And you noted earlier, she didn't have that. So you're around the team. You may be more privy to conversations. I'm not asking you to reveal anything, but do you think the Aces are going to be able to find themselves like before, like to close out this season and to like go into the playoffs strong?
Yeah, well, you know what? I can tell you this. Becky believes that the Aces have the potential to have a 2021 Chicago-esque finals run. She said that unprompted. I was actually surprised because when they came back initially from the break, the questions were like they had just, I think, barely won, I guess, over the Sparks or something like that. But the question was like, where's the momentum with this team? Are the goals the same? Like, do you still have the same outlook? And she was like, well, listen, the Chicago Sky, they had a pretty she said average regular season, and they ended the season with the number 6 seed, and then they won it all. And she said that she feels like they have the potential to do that in their facility. And to me, if she has that belief, it's clear to me that Asia has that belief. It's like you got the people that need to be locked in and have those goals are locked in and have those goals. I think that a lot of people are confused why they haven't filled their 12th roster spot or why they weren't active at the trade deadline. I talked to general manager Natalie Williams, and she was like, we're trying to work on chemistry with the people we already have. We can't add somebody. Like, it would be very difficult to add somebody else and then still try to work on chemistry. And that's not off the court. Like, they're just trying to make sure they can gel as a team with the talent that they have. And they have, as we discussed, 6 Olympians. And they're figuring it out. Like, honestly, just after that Sky win, seeing Megan Gustafson in her first start of the season make a huge impact from the 3-point line, like, that is encouraging to me. I know people are tired of hearing this message come out of Aces or Aces adjacent people, but like, I think they have what they need to do it. It's more about flipping that switch. And at a certain point, like, there's only so much talking that can be done. We keep on hearing it from Becky. We keep on hearing it from Asia. But, like, Asia's showing it. You know what I mean? We need, like, the whole team to lock in together. And I genuinely believe they can do that. So I believe they can do it. They have the goal. We just got to see what they do.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Asia hasn't even gotten all fancy and pretty like she normally does. Well, she's always pretty, but you know what I mean. Like, she normally like dresses up, and
she's serving fits and all that stuff.
Yeah, and she's been like in her joggers and white tees. So
yeah,
we know she's meaning business. And I'm gonna put out my power rankings tomorrow, and I've gotten a lot of flack for how much credence I've given to the Aces and who they are and what they are. And I still give them a lot. I still believe that they can contend for a championship, but there definitely will be a change in my power rankings. So look out for those tomorrow. But like I said, this game had really big playoff implications for both teams. The Aces are sitting in 5th, and they actually still have the potential, I think, genuinely to move into 3rd place, like depending on how things fall for the other teams. They're only like a few games back of like the other teams. Yeah. And when you look at this, and I checked each team before that additional loss to
the Lynx.
They still even had a chance at 2nd. I think the reason why it would be hard to get 2nd is just because tiebreakers right now wouldn't favor them. But yeah. I do think 3rd or 4th is still legitimate based on the schedule of the other teams, their record, so they may not. I think people are just kind of accepting that they're in 5th right now. And I think that they actually do have the chance to move up and get better seating. But we know that they're going to make the playoffs. That's going to happen. So I don't foresee them dropping to 6th. I think the lowest they'll be is 5th. So, it's just a matter of time to see what's going to happen with them.